OutRight is a global LGBTIQ rights organization. We're 30 years old this year, and we have staff and offices in 7 countries globally, and we work on a very simple concept. LGBTIQ communities everywhere experience discrimination, we experience violence, and we're often incredibly isolated and alone. It doesn't have to be this way. So OutRight works through the principle of ground-up international solidarity. If there's an LGBTIQ organization in Indonesia or Jamaica or Myanmar, and they want a helping hand and they want to accelerate progress in their community, we reach out, we meet them where they are, we train their staff, we give small grants to their organization, and then we help them flourish.
Hey everybody, Nicholas Snow here, and I want to welcome you to a very important episode of Promote Homo TV, where you're going to learn about how you could make a difference in the global support of the LGBTQI community. A long time that we've been saying, think globally, act locally, but so many of us are well off in our local communities. It's time to act globally as well. And I hope this episode inspires you to do that as we learn about OutRight Action International, more commonly referred to as OutRight. For their support of my show, I want to thank Desert AIDS Project, 849 Restaurant and Lounge, and Blue Tiger Recovery.
And now, on with the snow. I mean show.
We want to thank everyone for coming today. My name is Derrick McLaughlin, and this is my husband, Ken Seeley. We're really proud to be able to be part of OutRight and this event. We were talking this morning about what OutRight does and how important the work that they do is. It's really easy to be able to support things here in the U.S., and I think we're a little spoiled with how despite some of the current things that are going on, how spoiled we are as how progressive and how welcomed and accepted we are, and that's not the case worldwide. And the opportunity to bring some visibility and to support the mission of OutRight, which is working really hard. I got to learn today a little bit about some of the work they're doing to stop conversion therapy in China and Africa, which is, we take that for second nature, that's happening automatically, but it's not. And the legislative work and the legal work that they're doing as just a small part of their overall mission is amazing. So we're also blessed to have one of our best peeps here, and Ken's going to introduce him.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
The much older.
Good friend of ours. But when they asked, how do you, what do you support in OutRight? I was like, anything John does. Anything that John does, we want to be a part of. Because getting behind John, who's a dear friend, we know we're on the right road when we're behind him. Because I just love everything you do, John. So it's an honor and a privilege to have you here today, and love you dearly. So Welcome, John Heilman.
Yep.
Thank you.
We also have additional seats here and on the couch. So if anybody wants to take a seat, please feel free.
Thank you all for being here, and thank you especially to Ken and Eric for opening up their fantastic home for this event. As Eric said, we are really, really fortunate to be here in Palm Springs, in West Hollywood, in Southern California. We really have this fantastic life where pretty much the community is supportive. Yeah, we have issues, of course, but we have a sense of freedom and acceptance in West Hollywood and in Palm Springs, in Long Beach. that you don't see in other parts of the country, and certainly not in other parts of the world. I joined the board of OutRight a couple of years ago. I've had the opportunity to see the amazing work that's being done. A year ago, I had the chance to go to Africa and meet with some activists in Africa. And I have to tell you, the things that they have to deal with, just trying to survive as individuals, in addition to having to be leaders in their community and fight oppression, it's incredible. And it's incredible that we have been able to work with activists around the world. Our executive director, Jessica Stern, is just a force of nature. She's amazing. She's incredibly intelligent. Whenever I'm trying to reach her, she's always someplace. Oh, I'm going to Iraq to meet with activists there. Oh, I just got back from Indonesia where we're working with activists. Or we just did a training in the Philippines. Or we're meeting with our Chinese sponsor to try to figure out how to get support into the country. So she is really everywhere. What's the word, peripatetic or whatever? I can't say it, but she's an amazing executive director. She's an incredible leader, and she's just a wonderful, wonderful steward of our organization. And she'll tell you about some of the other places where we have people working and some of the work we're doing. So please join me in welcoming our executive director, Jessica Stern.
So OutRight is a 30-year-old organization, and I would say, if you haven't heard of us before, we're the most important organization that you never heard of. We have staff and offices in 7 countries globally, 2 in Asia, 2 in the Caribbean, 1 in East Africa, and 1 in Europe. Palm Springs has this sort of sister city in Sitges, Spain. It's actually like a gay resort town, and I swear to you, we have a lot of work coming out of Sitges. It's a long story, ask me later. And then our global headquarters is in the United States, and it specifically is in New York because one of our primary functions is serving as a watchdog and advocate at the United Nations. And so we work from a very simple model. It's so hard to make progress for LGBTIQ people in just one country. You may be asking yourselves, why is this organization crazy enough to try to make change in 193 countries? And you may also be asking yourselves, is it possible to be effective on the global scale? And the answer is, we do it because if we don't, no one else will. And to the question, can we be effective? The answer is absolutely yes.
One of the most important things to realize is that we can all do something for international LGBTIQ rights. Whether you're sitting in Omaha or Cedar Lake Rapids or Palm Springs, you can make an impact. And so if you partner with OutRight, you can get involved in any number of ways. We're always looking for volunteers, and you can review applications from activists that want to come into our training programs to get a boost so that they know how to advocate with their own governments. You can organize a house party. You can even donate your time. Someone just offered to do research and policy analysis for us. If you're in the private sector, you can say, we have a lot of influence in the governments of Indonesia, or we have strong relationships with the government of France. How can we use this to help LGBTIQ people around the world? The simple answer is there is always something you can do. If you have something you want to offer, we will find a way to use it. I think it's incredibly important to realize the levels of violence and discrimination that LGBTIQ people are facing internationally. 68 countries still criminalize homosexuality. In 30 countries, there's not even one LGBTIQ organization. So it's not an embarrassment of riches where you're deciding between this one and that one. There's not even one that you can turn to. And there are only 4 countries in the whole world that ban conversion therapy. And so in this environment, LGBTIQ people around the world live with
arbitrary arrest, discrimination at work, violence from the families and sometimes even from the communities, and also just profound isolation. And so one of the things that we ask people to understand is that this takes a huge toll in people's lives. And I'll tell you a quick story. On November 25th, the most visible gay man in Haiti, Charlot Judy, was found dead in his home. And this just happened 2 months ago. And we've been asking, what was the cause of death? Because when a famous gay activist suddenly dies in the prime of health at age 43, you have to assume it's not an accident. So OutRight started investigating what had happened to Charlot, and we found that he had been receiving death threats for 1 month prior on his personal phone. And unfortunately, he couldn't trust the police to do anything about it. And LGBTIQ people in Haiti, his friends, his colleagues, they begged him to temporarily relocate, to temporarily leave Haiti. And he said, I'm not willing to leave my work and my community. And unfortunately, he paid dearly. He sacrificed his own life. Charlot was buried this past week, and I am horrified to say we still don't know the cause of death. There was no official autopsy by the Haitian government. No police investigation has been conducted. And so the LGBTIQ community in Haiti is left speculating. And I don't have to tell you, when you have to speculate, it just produces fear. So one of the reasons that we ask people to do something, to do anything for LGBTIQ people around the world is because we're not just asking help support a pride parade, we're asking people to support struggles that are really about life and death. So a lot of your viewers may have heard the rumors and read the news stories that over 100 gay men were systematically rounded up, arrested, and tortured in Chechnya in 2018, and I can confirm that those accounts were in fact true. OutRight worked with local partners, and we're able to verify that the violence was real, it was happening, and it was systematic. And the thing that I would want to emphasize is that Chechnya is not the only place where this is happening to gay men. It's not the only place where it's happening to LGBTIQ people. You know, the same year, there was a gay sauna in Indonesia that was raided, and 140 gay men were arrested. Who is talking about what happened in Indonesia? It wasn't in the news. Or last year, 54 LGBTIQ people were arrested in a roundup after a group of concert goers waved a rainbow flag at a concert in Cairo. So mass arrests of LGBTIQ people and sometimes the detention and incarceration that follows is a reality in many countries around the world. And I think it's just so important that we take note when it happens. We ask, where is it happening that's not in the news? That we shed light on it, because the reason why the mass detentions of gay men in Chechnya stopped is because we built a global campaign to make it stop. There's too high of a political price for it to continue. When you have news articles about it all the time in the international press, when you have other governments condemning it, when you have international NGOs giving support, it makes a difference. The violence stops.
I've had experience, global experience, and I've traveled a lot, but I think my work with OutRight has really even highlighted that more. So one of the things that I do every year is I review the applications for activists around the world wanting to come to our Out Summit week. And every year the applications get better and better, and you read these stories about people who are facing oppression at home. They are budding kind of forces of nature in their own countries, and they just need the support from an organization like OutRight to realize their true self. So I think seeing that there could be forces of change in each of these countries where there's issues and atrocities happening is really what makes me want to support OutRight and continue to support OutRight. Again, OutRight's mission is very simple. We save lives. We make sure that lives are safe all over the world, and so I think it's a really easy mission to get behind, and something that I think anybody should investigate and support.
What inspires you to be of service in general?
I've always, I'm an only child. I've always been raised to give back. My parents came from very little means and did everything in their power to make sure that I could, have what I have today. And so, again, I think it's just, I like to pay it forward. So I've always been kind of a service mindset.
I feel like I'm still learning, and I will continue to learn what the needs are of the LGBTQI community are around the globe. But the work that we do at OutRight is really about assessing the needs in particular regions of the world, trying to help provide resources to the people who are the activists in those communities so that we can be a partner with them in advancing global LGBTQI rights. I mean, the things that people are facing around the globe are the same things that we faced in this country and still face in parts of the country. Homophobia, discrimination, violence, and some of it is orchestrated by governmental agents, some of it is orchestrated by non-governmental organizations, and some of it is organized by family members who shun people who are gay, force them out of the home, deny them resources, and inflict violence on their own family members who are discovered to be LGBTQI.
Well, and of course, there are countries where homosexuality or perceived homosexuality is punishable by death.
Yeah, there are places where it is governmentally decreed that if you're LGBTQI, you're criminal. Not because you do anything, not because of what you stand for, but simply because of who you are. You could be subject to the death penalty. And obviously, people who grow up in those areas face all sorts of economic discrimination. They face all sorts of fears and violence and, just the psychological trauma that people face growing up in that kind of environment.
What are some of the ways your eyes have been open in some of your recent travels?
Well, I think what really is eye-opening is the differences in terms of resources. So in our communities here in the United States, we have access to sort of basic resources that are lacking in other countries, where you're in a country where education isn't available to everyone, where just the daily struggle for food is a big issue, where people don't have steady employment, and even if they do, the compensation for that is so low that you cannot support yourself. So when you add on to that the struggle with discrimination and hatred and violence because you're LGBTQI, it's very difficult for people in communities, and you have governments that are not there to protect people, are engaging in oppression of people. So it's a real struggle in lots of places.
I think that we are sometimes a little spoiled here in the U.S. In that there are multiple organizations that do a lot, so sometimes it feels easy to just think, someone else is doing something. But when you hear about what OutRight is doing over 193 countries worldwide to help people, it's just incredible. And then you realize that places like China and Africa have conversion therapy actively going on in hospitals and institutions, and OutRight is actively taking a stance against that and seeing what they can do to change that. It really feels good to be kind of more of a worldwide perspective for those people who don't have the support that we have here in the U.S. and in particular in Palm Springs.
Yeah. What would you like to add to that, Ken?
Yeah, no, just like Eric said, I think it's just a great cause and a great way to show that there are people out there that are still suffering and having to hide in the closet and be buried like 80 years ago here in our country. And it shouldn't have to be that way in this world. So anybody that's taking a stance and fighting for that, we got to back them. And we all have to back them, not just us. We all have to back them because it's not fair. I mean, I know people that lived in the closet, because they couldn't come out and years ago. And it's not that way, and it shouldn't be that way for anyone. We're all human.
One of the things I've been sharing throughout this piece is that many of us live in communities where we have lots of privileges and lots of rights, and we've come a long way. And the phrase has been, think globally but act locally. But now we're so strong locally, it's time to act globally. Anything you want to add to that?
Exactly.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that we're able to expand our horizons and think about outside of ourselves. And, we love to travel, and the opportunity to travel is so great. And, if we want to be able to travel and be safe when we're traveling, this kind of global view is really important. And so we're really excited to support OutRight in any way we can.
Yeah. Thank you for supporting.
With Eric McLaughlin and Ken Seeley and their lovely Palm Springs home, I'm Nicholas Snow, and this has been a special edition of Promo Homo TV. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.